Hi everyone. Sincere apologies for the delay. Can you guys confirm if it's live on your own end?
It's live.
Is it? Okay. Thank you.
On my end, well, I still see the placement.
Sandra, please, you can go ahead. Yeah. Hi. Prima facie, can you see our YouTube page? Is it live on your end?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Fantastic. Hello everyone. Apologies again for the delay. Welcome everyone to the BeGreen Masterclass session. We are going to be talking about sustainable solutions, mastering waste management for a greener future. With us, we have Maureen and Prima facie, two waste management experts from Kenya, and they'll be the facilitators for this session. So please, I'm going to leave the floor for Maureen and Prima facie to introduce themselves. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the introduction. My name is Maureen Amakabane. I'm dialing in from Nairobi, Kenya. And yes, I'm an expert in the waste management space, and I've been in the sector for around the last 15 years, both in the private sector. I've conducted a lot of research, and I strongly believe there's a lot of opportunities within that sector. And I'm really looking forward to the engagements today. Thank you. Over to you, Prima facie.
Thank you so much, Maureen. And hello, everyone. My name is Prima facie Mutua from Kenya, Kisumu, Kenya, to be specific. I am an urban planner by profession, but I'm an entrepreneur in the waste management sector. And I have a waste management company, waste management and recycling company. And I've been in the sector for the past 3 years, and I'm looking forward to share my experiences with all of you. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very, very much, Prima facie, Maureen. And I'm sure our entrepreneurs here will learn a lot from you, both of you, during this insightful masterclass session. Yeah. So
Thank you.
Yeah, you go ahead, Sandra.
Thank you. My network dropped. I should introduce myself. Sandra Simbiri, with the UNICEF Kenya country office. We are one of the partners on BeGreen Africa. The program BeGreen Africa, for those of you who are not enrolled, is a partnership between Generation Unlimited, IKEA Foundation, Tony Elemulu Foundation, and created with a group of young people. So this masterclass is the first in a series of 5 that we're going to have over the next few weeks, and we're really excited about today. And maybe we should give an opportunity to Foco to do a quick translation, given that we have French speakers on this call, and we don't want to leave anybody behind in the discussion before we go into the first question for both Maureen and Prima facie. Over to you, Foco.
Bonjour tout le monde et bienvenue à cette session d'information. Donc aujourd'hui, nous allons avoir un échange avec vous sur un certain nombre de sujets sur le business de l'environnement, le business des entreprises vertes. Donc avec nous, nous avons 2 experts. Il s'agit de Maureen et Moutoua. Et nous avons aussi une responsable de UNICEF. Il s'agit de Sandra. Donc, une fois de plus, bienvenue et l'aventure va être palpitante. Merci. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Foco. We'll go into the first set of questions that we'll ask. Start with Maureen. Can you tell us a bit of how your business started? And then Prima facie, you can also respond to that in how your business started, how you developed the interest, what problem you were trying to solve, tell us a bit about your businesses. Over to you, Maureen, and then Prima Facie.
Awesome. So as a fresh graduate in Kenya, I had finished university and my background is sales and marketing. And then I came across this job. So I got a job or an opportunity to work at the time with the Pioneer toilet business in Kenya. So they were looking at, we used to do rental solutions. So waste management within events. So the business was really renting out toilets to events. And then as the business grew, we started looking at other strategic areas to grow. And I also grew within the business and I became the head of sales and marketing. And as a result, I had to conduct a lot of research so that I can be able to advise the company on the direction to go in terms of investment. So one of the areas that we started exploring is toilet solutions or human waste management solutions within the urban area and also within the city, informal settlements, and different segments. So what happened at the time is we were working very closely with different stakeholders to just try and understand the problem. But very interestingly, one of the things I came to realize about the gap of sanitation in Kenya is, for example, only a section of Nairobi has access to the sewage system. And actually, Nairobi, in the entire of Kenya, is the one that has access to a proper sewage system. And it's a very small section. So as a result, that creates a very big problem in how we manage our human waste that's churned out either from commercial buildings or churned out from residential units. So we started exploring different interventions and different interventions and different solutions that could be able to sort that out. And then, of course, as the career growth came, I left the organization. And then we had done a lot of research and the company decided to invest in a certain segment. But then in the research, I had actually conducted research in schools. And then I came to realize, number one, how the problem of waste, human waste is treated in schools. So schools were quite underserved. So schools in Kenya lack proper sanitation. And then secondly, they are also underserved. So you find a lot of the interventions in Kenya will target either informal settlements, commercial buildings, or residential houses. So there's nobody really playing in that space. So that's how I was able to, design a business that supplies or solves the problem of sanitation within schools. Prima facie.
Yes, thank you so much, Maureen, and I love your story. And as for myself, as I said, I'm an urban planner by profession, but I like to say that I've been an environmentalist since I was a child. And moving into Kisumu, that's where I went to school that's my campus school. I interacted with SDG number 11 quite a lot, and SDG number 11, one of the targets is waste management. So I had a keen interest. And then right after I finished school, I started working and volunteering for a nonprofit organization that was working closely with street-connected youth and women. And now seeing that and being an environmentalist and encountering the negative effects of waste pollution in the Lake Victoria and in our communities, and also now having the background of working with street-connected youth and understanding that most of them, actually just 80% of them, end up being waste workers, and they face a lot of challenges such as lack of gears, lack of protective equipment, as well as discrimination and being taken advantage of in the work that they do. We tried, now me and my co-founder, who's Benson Abila, we tried to merge the two. So how can we ensure that communities are able to know how to manage their waste directly from the household level, but we're also able to improve the livelihoods of the actors that play the primary role of collecting this waste. So we realized that there are three main challenges in the sector from our perspective. And one of the biggest challenges was limited knowledge on waste management and recycling strategies. So people don't know what to do, but also again, limited incentive for people to actually take individual action. And then lastly, limited tools for people to get engaged in recycling. So that's how we came up with our business, and that facilitates now this whole process. So we're able to educate communities on sustainable waste management practices, as well as now incentivize recycling and dignify waste work now, because we work closely with waste workers, ensuring that they are equipped and geared up to work in safe and healthy conditions, and then through our mobile application, we're able to provide a tool that makes recycling easy, accessible, and rewarding for community members and households to get engaged in recycling. So yes, Sandra, thank you so much. And yeah, over to you.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Prima Facie. We've heard about how they started the journey. There's been an evolution from where they were to where they are today. Exciting to hear there's a lot of research that went into the journey. There's a lot of knowledge generation, looking at the different SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and also about taking individual action and turning challenges into opportunities. Maybe I'll take a few minutes to ask for the translation before we go to the next question. And for the audience on YouTube, if you can type your question in, we have a Q&A session at the end of this. So type your question in the chat. We'll consolidate them, indicating if it's to Prima Facie or if it's to Maureen. And at the end of the session, we'll ask them to address the questions. So let's have a moment for Foko to do the translation. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Donc, nous avons commencé par une question qu'on a posée à nos deux panélistes, en l'occurrence Maureen et Mutua. On leur a demandé qu'est-ce qui les a poussés à lancer leur business, quels sont leurs intérêts et comment est-ce qu'elles ont procédé. Donc, pour Maureen, déjà pour son background, Maureen dit qu'elle a fait des études en marketing et qu'elle avait remarqué qu'il y avait des problèmes de toilettes dans la ville de Nairobi. C'est pour ça qu'elle a fait beaucoup de recherches. Elle a eu à contacter des partenaires, tous les parties prenantes dans le business des toilettes ou bien dans le fonctionnement des toilettes dans les écoles. Et qu'au fil de toutes ces recherches et enquêtes qu'elle a eu à faire, elle a fini par mettre en place un business qui fait dans le traitement des déchets de toilettes. Pour ce qui est de Mutua, je pense qu'elle dit qu'elle a un diplôme en environnement et elle avait son cofondeur. Ils ont essayé de réfléchir sur le traitement des déchets dans leur ville et de fil en aiguille, elles en ont conclu qu'il fallait mettre en place un business sur le traitement des déchets. Et à la date d'aujourd'hui, effectivement, ils font dans le traitement des déchets. Et pour cela, il y a une forte activité de sensibilisation et d'éducation de la population sur l'intérêt du traitement des déchets. Donc, il y aura à la fin un espace pour les questions-réponses. Si vous avez des questions, veuillez les poser dans le chat box de YouTube, s'il vous plaît. Merci. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Foko. Highlighting again that this session is again about the waste management, the waste sector, and how can we catalyze the transition to a circular economy. So Maureen, this question is for you. Can you highlight the magnitude of the waste problems so that we can have the viewers online to understand the waste crisis not only in Kenya, but sort of the landscape and how we can sort of create businesses around the waste sector. Over to you, Maureen.
All right. So for example, I've painted a picture around the magnitude of the human waste management. So what I've just said is, for example, in Kenya, the urban cities, I live in an urban city, and only a percentage of it has a sewage system. A bigger part of it doesn't have access to a sewage system. And this, for example, potentially explains the defragmented systems that maybe is caused either by overpopulation, rapid growth within urban city, peri-urban cities, and also in the rural areas. So of course, when the population is multiplying, waste is generated. So that creates the picture. So think about a population that, for example, was maybe 10 years ago, Nairobi city was X population, and that has grown. And then if you just now start looking at, for example, within the household, so you'll find that a household generates different types of waste. So there's the human waste, there's the kitchen waste, which is of course organic, inorganic waste, there's paper waste that comes from our day-to-day consumptions. That's your books, your newspapers, all that. And then there's electronic waste, for example. waste that comes from renovations and repairs. So all that is produced at household level and then multiply that in a scale. So the magnitude can actually be measured. So for example, you can just do a random collection of the different segments of the waste space and then take a household unit. So for example, I live in an urban center, I live in a gated community, there's potentially 5,000 homes. So assuming each house is generating an average of 3 kilos of waste every day, times 5,000. That's potentially 15,000. That's potentially 15,000 of kilos of waste on a daily basis. Then multiply that by the number of people in a city and then translate it, for example, to the country. So that's the magnitude, and it cuts across. For example, even e-waste. 20 years ago, e-waste was going to be a non-issue, but right now, every year, like today I was looking at my phone, it's giving me problems. I'm thinking on how to renew it. When I looked at a space where I store things, I have like 5 other phones that I've used over the years, and I'm still holding on to them because I don't want to throw them. They're hanging around there. They're not in use, so they're really lying there in terms of waste. So around 20 years ago, electronic waste is not something you'd find in the house. And even if it was not going to be at the same magnitude. So you can multiply that by the number of units. So I think for me, as you think about waste management, you should be able to look at it from a very macro space and then bring it down to the micro space. And at the micro space, I feel that is where entrepreneurs have the opportunity to innovate. So first thing you can do is look at it. The magnitude is very big, but because we are startups, we are really going into it. Look at it very pragmatically, and I've given an example. For example, if you're going into e-waste, the opportunity is there. 20 years ago, I didn't have anything that I would call e-waste because I was in high school. I didn't have a phone. Most households did not have mobile phones and other gadgets that are coming up. Right now, e-waste is a real challenge because every day we have the urge to either upgrade our phones, we have the urge to either switch phones, and that becomes a waste. So the magnitude can actually be looked at it from a macro space and then grow it, extrapolate it based on your population. Prima facie.
Thank you very much, Maureen. The next question is going to be to Prima Facie. Can you tell us more about your innovative approach around waste management and how you've incorporated technology?
Thank you so much, Sandra. And thank you so much, Maureen, for the insights again on waste management and truly looking at it from a micro, because we are startups and we have to start somewhere. And for us at MTACA, that's what we did. So just going by random statistics in Kisumu generates about 210 waste in a day. And most of this goes uncollected. But from my earlier conversation, I tried to shed light on how we thought about the problem, or the research that we did, how we thought to view the problem. So our biggest solution really was targeted at along behavior change. So we understand that communities really need to change the way they handle waste. But then on the flip side, we also understand that waste workers are facing a lot of challenges. So for us, this is how we came up. So when we started with a very rudimentary web app that was able to just connect households and agents who are now waste workers who've been trained and equipped so that they can offer them for the household to get somewhere where they can dispose of their waste and for an agent to get consistent income through collection of recyclables. But we also understood that separation of waste plays a very key role in the way that we manage our waste. So for us, we are very big on separation of waste at source. So we educate communities on separation of waste at source, and through that, they're able to segregate their waste at source. And then we only collect recyclable waste, and then we channel organic waste to users who are either composting or using BSF in their value chain. So the technology that we're using is a mobile app, but over the years and recently, we have grown to even offer systems and engage with AI and data, and integrate AI and data into our programming. So the way that our mobile app works is that users are able to request for recyclables to be collected at their own convenience. And we also have USSD codes for households or users that don't have smartphones. And the agents are able to receive the request and come and collect the recyclables. The agents will weigh the recyclables and then reward the household with redeemable points. These points are redeemable for services, and we partnered with local shops to be able to redeem the points for services such as, for products such as household goods, and we're even looking to partner with medical practitioners for medical services. And once the agents have collected the recyclable materials, they're either brought to our material recovery facility, which is a facility that allows us to further sort the materials. Because you understand the way that waste is handled at the household source. You have plastic bottles, you have glass bottles, you have sometimes metal, and all of that are different waste value chains and go into different sectors for further recycling. And then we are able then to sell these materials via our system to large-scale recyclers who then offer us, who pay us, and then the money now trickles down back to the waste workers that we work with. So that is how we are integrating technology into our system. And as I said, we're also integrating AI because we understand that AI is an emerging trend, and we are trying to see how do we use AI to really change and shift the behavior of individuals. So we'll be offering personalized feedback through our application and system to users on how they can really increase their recycling habits. But for data analytics, we are actively collecting data in the waste sector. One of the biggest challenges that we face coming into the sector, especially solid waste management, is that the data is very fragmented. There's data, but it's very, you find that one source is saying we only recycle 8%, the other source is saying maybe 20%. So you really don't know who to trust and what data to go with. So we're actively collecting data, and this data, we are using it to analyze and predict, and for predictive analysis that will help us to predict how much we're able to, how much of our work is actually impactful, but also how much as a country, as Maureen was saying, if we extrapolate, if a household is generating 300 kgs multiplied by 500, and given the rate of increase in population, are we able to extrapolate, let's say in 10 years, how much an estate can generate in terms of waste? But also this data is very critical for policy in government institutions, in that it's able to help them make decisions better and even strengthen the policies that are within their system. But in terms of innovative approaches, away from what we do as a company, there are very many innovative approaches that integrate technology and even circular economy initiatives. I know of so many people who generally did not care about waste management within their businesses, but after learning about circular economy initiatives, they're able to integrate the initiatives within their businesses. So looking at, even as a business, if you are generating a product, how are you able to make it more environmental friendly? Are you able to make it, let's say if it's packaging for a product, is it able to, can you make it biodegradable? Do you have waste at the end of that? Can you really consider it as waste? Is there a way that you can, maybe if you're making flour and there's waste from the flour that you make, or maize, is there a way that you can source it, make it a raw material for someone else to make something else? I know so many people making briquettes, which are eco-friendly sources of energy, that they're making it from organic waste, as well as what Maureen said, shared on e-waste management, which is also something that's coming up very fast. And I know of so many people who are now trying to recycle all the parts and using a varied way of technologies. But inherently, if you look at the way we handle waste, I will employ all of us to shift from the take, use, and dispose of mechanism that we've been having as a country or the continent, and move towards the circular economy, in that now we can integrate innovative approaches on how we handle waste. Thank you, Sandra. Over to you.
Thank you, Prima Facie. That was very interesting. We're looking at web applications, we're looking at data, we're looking at AI, we're looking at policy. Before I continue, let me ask my colleague Foko if he can do the translation before we go on to the next, so that we ensure we're moving together. But really exciting to see both the waste crisis, waste management, as well as using innovative technology and using data to predict not only current, but also future income generation opportunities. Over to you, Foko.
Thank you, Sandra. Donc, nous allons commencer par partager avec vous ce que Maureen a apporté comme solution à la crise des déchets qu'elle a eu à observer à Nairobi, sa ville. Donc, elle nous a dit que de prime abord, il y a d'abord un problème de croissance rapide. Donc, il y a la ville s'urbanise, il y a beaucoup de monde, beaucoup de familles, beaucoup de déchets par conséquent. Elle identifie par exemple qu'il y a pratiquement 3 kilogrammes que chaque famille de déchets par jour, que chaque famille génère. Et pour cela, il fallait réfléchir sur des solutions afin de gérer tout cela. Et la difficulté était que les déchets sont très disparates. On a par exemple les déchets électroniques, on a du papier, on a les restes de nourriture, on a du plastique, on a des bouteilles. Donc, il y a toute une panoplie de types de déchets qu'il faut bien évidemment sélectionner avant de collecter. Et eux, ils ont réfléchi dessus, ils ont travaillé au point d'en arriver même à des analyses sur le plan macro, parce qu'elle n'arrivait pas à s'en sortir. Il fallait voir comment, sur le plan macro, les gens réfléchissaient avant de pouvoir trouver des solutions micro qui sont proches de la population. Donc, voilà globalement le résumé qu'on peut faire de l'intervention de Maureen. Pour ce qui concerne Prima Facie, ce qu'elle a pu apporter comme solution innovative dans son environnement, c'est qu'elle a d'abord remarqué qu'il fallait à tout prix procéder au changement de mentalité dans le traitement des déchets. Parce que, bien évidemment, avant, les déchets n'étaient pas traités. Et vu que les populations aussi généraient un certain nombre de déchets, ça veut dire toujours les déchets plastiques, les déchets ménagers, les déchets en bouteille, les déchets électroniques, parce que la technologie fait que les familles utilisent aujourd'hui des appareils électroniques. Et tous ces appareils électroniques, dans leur fin de cycle de vie, devient encombrant. Donc, elle a mis en place des systèmes de sélection, de tri de ces déchets au point où il y a des laboratoires mobiles, donc appelons ça laboratoire mobile. Ils ont des unités mobiles qui passent dans les quartiers afin de pouvoir collecter ces déchets qui sont disparates, comme on l'a vu. Et dans leur système de traitement, il y a par exemple le compostage, quand c'est des produits ménagers purs. Donc, au niveau de Prima Facie, elle a aussi dit, elle a beaucoup insisté sur l'éducation de la population afin que les gens puissent procéder à des tri des déchets ou bien des sélections de déchets, qu'eux soient éco-responsables. C'est pour ça que le principal difficulté ou challenge qu'eux ils ont eu, c'était au niveau des données, parce qu'il y avait des disparités dans les données. Les données, quand ils recevaient les données, les données étaient disparates. Donc, c'est-à-dire peut-être la mairie donnait telle donnée et le ministère donnait telle autre donnée. Ce qui fait que pour s'en sortir, ils ont dû mettre en place des intelligences artificielles afin de pouvoir faire des analyses des données qu'ils recevaient pour pouvoir faire le recyclage des déchets. Et bien évidemment, ils sont très connectés aux politiques, c'est-à-dire qu'il y a une bonne politique qu'eux, ils essaient de mettre en place dans leurs solutions. Voilà globalement ce qu'on peut retenir pour ce qui est de Maureen et de Prima Facie. Thank you, Sandra. You have the floor.
Thank you, Foko. For those who are joining in, we have the translation because BeGreen is being implemented in Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, and Senegal, just showing the diversity of the continent. And we want to ensure that everybody who is on board is able to glean from these very useful insights. So we'll have the translation after we've had every set of questions for those joining in now and asking why do we have French? So we have the program also running in Senegal. So I'll go on to my next set of questions, and these are around policy and governance. So Prima Facie has mentioned that she is based in Kisumu, and Maureen has talked about Nairobi. So we know these are two different areas across Kenya that will have different policies, different governance around them. And so, Maureen, the first question is to you. What do you think is the government's role in terms of policy and regulations in shaping waste management practices in Kenya? Given that you're from Kenya, so what is the role of government, policies and regulations in shaping the waste management practices in Kenya? And then Prima Facie, maybe I'll also have your questions so you can come in immediately after. Yours is what is the role of the public and private partnerships, and especially the community, in driving waste management initiatives? You've talked about your collection at source. So what do you believe is the community as well as the public and private partnerships in driving waste management initiatives? So we start with Maureen and then we go over to Prima Facie. Thank you.
All right. So from where I sit, I think government plays a big role, not only in Kenya, but also in the continent generally. So the first role is really political goodwill. And I'll give an example of Kenya. So Kenya, over the years, has had very good political goodwill. And with the right political goodwill, then you'll have lobby groups, affirmative actions that can be passed to ensure that this particular sector is mainstreamed or brought forward. So some years back, there was a change of political shift, and we had somebody who was new in the block, and they were very committed to ensuring, for example, Nairobi is clean. Even the current, for example, most of the governors at the moment are prioritizing clean cities, clean spaces, and things like that. So once you have the political goodwill, that becomes a very critical factor that is also going to thrive, ensure that public-private partnerships are working, or then they are enabled. So there's that overall umbrella of political goodwill. Then from there, there's going to be legislation. Is government passing specific legislation in Kenya that are in the countries, in the respective countries, that is favoring waste management? Some years back again, for example, Kenya put a total ban on a type of plastic paper. So that even starts showing you that there's either opportunities to upcycle, because with that kind of ban or that kind of regulation, two things happen in the industry. Some type of plastic was completely eliminated, and then there was a drive to start removing or bringing out this kind of plastic, especially polythene paper bags, from the ecosystem. So businesses innovated around that space. I think I've seen businesses that go into the seas, go into the big water bodies to try and harvest and bring out the plastic waste papers that were disposed in the water bodies over the years. So that creates a business opportunity. So the legislation and policy is very clear. And then there's issues like, for example, affirmative action. Is government, for example, saying that we are putting this legislation and we are prioritizing minority groups? For example, youth, women, people living with disability. Again, in Kenya, affirmative action came to favor a lot of young people, and I think it really provides the opportunity to put private-public partnerships, because if youth and women or special groups are generating businesses, and there is an opportunity, and government has affirmative action. For example, in Kenya, we have a 30% national procurement affirmative action. It gives young people or entrepreneurs like us on this call an opportunity to bid for public tenders and actually go into the business. For example, the business that I mentioned I worked for, the time it was fully run by youth. The founders are youth. I was youth. I think 90% of the people were youth. And there was the political goodwill. And then there was that affirmative action. And I remember we bid, the organization bid to manage public toilets in main cities. And you won the bid through a public procurement tender. So those are some of the ways in how government can look at. And then the government creates, government plays the role of enforcement. So if you look at one of the things I always encourage young people or anybody who's in the space, look at the enforcement bodies. So for example, Kenya has put a ban on plastic paper. Who's responsible for enforcing that? So government plays a very big enforcement role, and that enforcement opportunity creates business opportunities for people like us really in the sanitation sector. And then of course, the biggest role is budget allocation. One of the biggest roles is budget allocation. Is government allocating at the national level? Is government prioritizing budgets at this level? And again, in Kenya, I'm not so sure about the other countries, but in Kenya, government also now has started allocating specific budgets towards waste management, towards sanitation, towards the green economy. So I feel those are the critical areas that government will be playing, but most important, it's always important for us to align ourselves with the direction that the government is taking. And in Kenya, there's a lot of political goodwill, and I feel most of those things are aligned. So if we innovate and we're in touch with the day-to-day politics and the day-to-day governance, then we'll be able to find ways on how we can plug in.
Yeah, and I love that, and I agree so much with Maureen, and I agree with her sentiments, especially on aligning with governments, and especially on that the Kenyan government has a lot of goodwill. And even for ourselves in our enterprise, we have received so much goodwill from the Kisumu County government as well, and we have actually even they have mandated us to run of their material recovery facilities in Kisumu, which shows the amount of goodwill that this is able to bring forward and help and support entrepreneurs like us. And that drives me into the role of public and private partnerships, especially in driving and championing for sustainable waste management practices. And especially in terms of looking at, we are leveraging on frameworks that are already there. So for Kenya specifically, in 2022, there was a law that was passed, the Sustainable Waste Management Act, that mandates county governments to have material recovery facility. And looking at how now we operate in our county, we are able to leverage on the material recovery facility that the county already built, but cannot run by themselves. So we're able to leverage that and run that and continue championing for sustainable waste management practices. And then this brings me to my second point on public-private partnerships helps entrepreneurs and governments and institutions to combine the resources that they have. Maureen has talked about budget allocations from national and in Kenya specifically for in county governments. And you're able to see most of the time or some of the times the budget allocations that counties receive sometimes is not enough. But because of public-private partnerships, we find that development agencies and even entrepreneurs such as ourselves and innovators who are young are able to partner with county governments to push forward the agenda of sustainable waste management practices and the green economy. And this really goes to help not only us as entrepreneurs making business, but also the community at large. Because again, when we are doing this work in terms of waste management, is really not just for us to make business sense, but also to help the community that we live in. And again, I think it also helps in providing accountability on both ways. So working on in a sort of that relationship in public-private partnership offers accountability to us to hold accountable the government on their promises, on their tasks, but also for the government to hold the entrepreneurs accountable in the way they use resources that have been delivered through this mechanism. And then moving on to community-driven initiatives, I think this is very key for every innovator and every entrepreneur. You must innovate or you must create a business that is solving a specific problem and has community ownership in that once, let's say you leave that target group that you have, you don't leave a very big gap in terms of they were only, let's say you were forcing something onto them. So for us, it has been very critical to really integrate the community in the work that we do. Because again, it's really a matter of behavior change for us. We really have to change the way that we perceive waste, the way that we handle waste, the way that we dispose waste, from the linear economy that I talked about earlier to a more circular economy. And this cannot be done just by us having a business. It really has to stem from the community. So they have to have that ownership. And this goes into, if a community accepts your business, accepts your innovation, and they're able to own it as their own, this will automatically lead to the improvement and growth of your own business. And this now will translate again to the whole agenda that we're trying to push, in that we're trying to push for sustainable waste management practices and a circular economy. Thank you so much. Sandra, over to you.
Thank you, Maureen. Thank you, Prima Facie. It's exciting to hear one about opportunities that governments offer for young people. If research is done, if we can make connections for young people with those who've managed to successfully access them. I like the point about behavior change around my waste management, but I think there's also a mind shift for young people in engaging government, especially to access the opportunities, as well as to encourage government in one, not only enforcing some of the policies around waste management, but really holding government and young people and organizations accountable to these policies. Before we continue, let me ask my colleague Foko again to translate for our participants from Senegal so that we are sure that everybody is on the same page and we are moving along. So Foko, over to you for that translation. Thank you.
Thank you to Sandra. Donc, pour ce troisième round de questions, on a demandé à nos deux invités, Maureen et Prima Facie, successivement de nous parler de la politique et de la gouvernance. Au niveau de Maureen, on lui a dit de parler de la régulation, des différentes lois et le rôle du gouvernement en termes de traitement des déchets. Pour Prima Facie, on lui a demandé d'intervenir sur le partenariat public-privé en termes de traitement des déchets et d'économie verte. OK. Maureen a échangé avec nous en disant qu'au Kenya, il y a déjà de très bonnes lois sur l'environnement qui ont été mises en place. Il y a une très bonne politique et que l'État travaille beaucoup pour que les villes soient propres. Donc ça, c'est ce qu'elle a dit avec nous. Et elle a aussi annoncé qu'à une époque au Kenya, il y a eu interdiction formelle du plastique. Donc le plastique a été interdit. Et jusqu'à ce jour, cette loi est en train d'être appliquée. Au niveau aussi des jeunes et des femmes, elle nous dit qu'il y a des lois qui ont été mises en place pour que les jeunes et les femmes qui interviennent dans le business de l'environnement soient privilégiés. Et à cet effet, elle-même, son entreprise a eu à soumissionner à des appels d'offres. Et actuellement, eux, ils gèrent les toilettes publiques dans pas mal de villes. Donc, voilà pour ce qui est de condenser de ce que Maureen a partagé avec nous. Concernant Prima Facie, elle nous a dit qu'il y a une loi de 2022 qui a favorisé aussi le traitement des déchets. Et elle dit qu'en termes de partenariat public-privé, qu'il y a une bonne combinaison des ressources due au fait que le public s'accorde bien avec le privé et le fait qu'il y ait cette plateforme d'échange entre le public et le privé facilite la crédibilité pour les entrepreneurs qui interviennent dans les business verts. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'eux, ils travaillent énormément pour qu'il y ait un changement de mentalité. Et au sein de la communauté, ça se ressent parce que la communauté est directement indexée dans les campagnes d'éducation, ce qui fait que cette communauté, bien évidemment, accepte ce type de business. Donc, voilà ce qu'on va chuter sur l'acceptation du business vert, des entreprises vertes dans sa ville par les communautés. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Foko. We are coming to the last question before we open for Q&A. And so we've had a lot of information about human waste, about organic waste, about sanitation waste, AI, affirmative action, collection at source, black soldier fly. So Maureen and Prima Facie, we have a lot of young people who are listening in today and in the days to come. What are 5 key insights that you want them to take away from this session? A lot of them may be in starting their business. A lot of them have an existing business. So what 5 key insights and takeaways can you give to them as they continue with the training? Over to, let me start with Prima Facie and then I'll go to Maureen. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Sandra. So for me, I'll start with, again, what I ended with last time on community ownership. For innovators, sometimes we tend to overlook and just build because we're building or because we're interested in a specific problem or because you have a certain expertise. But I would really implore you to really look deep into the problem that you're trying to solve. And if you're really creating that solution for the people who are facing that problem. So understand and put yourself in their shoes and empathize with them. My other key insight and takeaway is that I would like to employ all of us to shift the way that we think about waste, to shift the way that we handle waste from a household level, from an individual level, from a take, use, and dispose sort of economy to a rather more circular economy where products and products are able to be reused, repurposed, and at the end of it, even recycled back into the system. And I will also love to share that as innovators, don't be scared to ask for help. When you begin the entrepreneurship journey, it can be quite lonesome, but feel free to reach out to anyone in the industry via LinkedIn, via Facebook, via Twitter, or if you have them on your contacts, and reach out for help, because it's a very lonesome one. And you are able to build yourself or build your solution just by soundboarding it, by sharing it with someone. Don't be afraid to share it with someone because you think that they'll steal your idea. Sharing, the only way that you can move forward is be able to share your innovation, or even if you're not sharing all of it, just share a rudimentary idea and someone will be able to tell you if it's really viable and share insights for that. I'll also like to employ that, especially for Kenyan innovators, don't be scared to reach out to government. There are a lot of funds and opportunity for young people within the government institutions, such as the Youth Development Fund, that really come in to help young people in scaling up their businesses and their enterprises. And then lastly, I will like to share that the amount of waste in the world is so much that it will take us a very long time to collect it and even see how we can reuse it or recycle it. So keep on thinking about different ways of innovation. As I shared, different strategies of innovating, from innovating packaging differently, from generation of waste. Are you able to change the way that your community perceives waste? Are you able to provide alternative services of waste disposal? To disposal, are you able to collect it from them? Some countries, still, and even in Kenya, some places still don't have access to waste collection services. Maureen was talking about sanitation. I know sanitation is still a huge gap in the continent. How are you able to innovate around that? Even agricultural waste is quite huge. Are you able to think about solutions around that? And I'm quite thankful that the program is able to share that. And then lastly, recycling. How are you able to recycle the products that you are engaging with? Think about solutions around that. Thank you so much, Sandra, and to the BeGreen team. Over to you, Maureen.
Quite some interesting insights, prima facie. So I think on my end, the first tip will be the individual call to action. So the personal call to action is everybody is responsible for waste management. So the first thing is, even at personal level, how do you manage the waste? If you eat a sweet, where do you throw that paper? If you eat a banana while you're on the street, how do you manage it? If you want to change your phone, how do you ensure that you're having all these things in mind? You just dump it out there and wait for the next person, or you consideration? So the first tip is the personal call to action and understanding, or just getting into the space of knowing that it's our personal responsibility to look at our environment and to ensure that we churn out minimum waste. And if you have that personal call to action, this will start showing up in your personal space, in your houses, and the places you interact with. The second thing is the opportunities. What opportunities are there? So even as you go through this BeGreen program, try and look at it, like I said, from a macro opportunity and then from a micro level, and then segment. You've seen there's different types of waste. It cuts across many industries. So within your personal self, or for example, within a group or the youth group, like in Kenya, youth groups are very popular. See how you can be able to come up together and see. So for example, the opportunity is in e-waste. Think about how we're going to go this direction. So think big, act in micro spaces, and then think on how you're going to fit in your idea and which segment you want to tackle. What are the collaborations? There's a lot of organizations that have already committed to managing waste. So on the internet, big corporations have taken, signed global treaties in terms of waste management, or even recycling or traceability. So you may need to do a bit of more research, and this is my call to say research creates a big role while you're on the internet. Good thing is we live in the information age, and internet is an enabler. So how are you going to use the internet to look at potential spaces or potential individuals who can collaborate, organizations? So some of the ideas would be organizations that generate plastic. A good number of them have signed up treaties, global treaties, or global commitments, or a part of global declarations where they're saying that you must have traceability. So those are people who you can go and start and see how can we collaborate, how can we take in, how can we support them in solving this waste management problem. Fourth thing is have a growth mindset. we have to shift and we start having a growth mindset. And growth comes with you thinking strategically and also in a very pragmatic manner. So a growth mindset will enable you to have, which feeds into my next point, knowledge. So read, don't be afraid to research. And as you put all these things together, see how you can integrate business models into it. So it will also be very important for you to sign up to programs like BeGreen, or really take advantage of the knowledge that you're being shared with. Because what's happening in the BeGreen is most of us have ideas, but maybe you're not able to shape them in a business model. Business modeling will help you in understanding how you're generating income and how you're going to be spending the income. Therefore, it becomes sustainable. Yeah.
Thank you, Maureen. A lot of great insights. To again reiterate, we are having 4 more other masterclass sessions. This is the first. We've had a very insightful session from Maureen and Prima Facie, one in the waste sector. We are going to have 4 more over the next few weeks, and the information will be shared with you. So we ask that you stay tuned. Again, I see many questions in the chat that FOCO should speak in English. So what FOCO is doing is translating what has been said in English. It's nothing different. We are accommodating our audience from Senegal. So maybe again, FOCO, I'll ask you to translate the 5 highlights from Prima Facie and Maureen before we go on to the Q&A session. Over to you, FOCO.
Thank you, Sandra. Okay, as Sandra said, I am just give a resume of what was said in English for Senegalese. Donc, chers Sénégalais, le français, c'est pour vous. Donc, je donne juste un résumé rapide de ce que nos 2 oratrices ont dit. Par exemple, nous sommes au 4e point et Sandra leur a demandé quels sont, vu qu'il y a beaucoup de jeunes qui interviennent dans ce programme et qui aimeraient être des entrepreneurs à succès demain, elle a demandé quelles sont les 5 clés que Maureen ou Prima Facie peut partager avec tous nos entrepreneurs. Alors, Prima Facie, en premier, a parlé comme premier point de la communauté. Donc, elle dit généralement, quand vous voulez faire de l'entrepreneuriat, il faut vous intéresser à la communauté afin de pouvoir identifier un problème pour lequel vous pouvez apporter une solution. Deuxième clé que Prima Facie a partagée, c'est l'économie circulaire. Donc, elle essaie de sensibiliser sur le fait que nous devons tous être conscients qu'un produit en fin de cycle peut retrouver une autre vie. Troisième clé qu'elle recommande aux entrepreneurs, c'est de pouvoir demander de l'aide. Donc, n'hésitez pas à partager. Elle a beaucoup insisté sur le partage. N'hésitez pas à échanger sur les réseaux sociaux, à demander de l'aide à ceux qui ont été avant vous. Ça peut être des coachs, ça peut être des mentors, ça peut être des programmes d'appui du gouvernement, des programmes d'appui comme ce programme de la Fondation Donner le Monde ou bien des institutions internationales comme l'UNICEF. Demandez de l'aide, participer à des programmes qui peuvent vous aider à mieux comprendre votre environnement. Quatrième clé que Prima Facie a partagée avec nous, c'est les opportunités qu'offre le gouvernement. Donc, elle insiste sur le fait que vous devez avoir suffisamment d'informations pour saisir les opportunités en termes de traitement des déchets ou de business vert dans votre environnement. Ça, ce sont des lois qui sont mises en place et qui permettent de détecter ces opportunités. Et 5e clé que Prima Facie a partagée, elle nous signale qu'il y a beaucoup de déchets. Il y a beaucoup de déchets et il serait important que les jeunes que nous sommes, qu'on essaie de trouver des solutions de traitement de ces déchets afin de sauvegarder notre environnement. Donc, elle encourage à beaucoup d'innovation en termes de solutions. Okay. Pour ce qui est avec nous, en l'occurrence, la première clé dont elle nous recommande de passer à l'action. Elle nous recommande de passer à l'action, c'est-à-dire que chaque entrepreneur ou bien chaque citoyen doit être éco-responsable. Ça veut dire que quoi? Ça veut dire qu'on doit prendre soin de ce que deviennent nos objets en fin de cycle, de ce que deviennent nos déchets. On ne doit plus les déverser dans l'environnement n'importe comment. Donc ça, c'est le premier conseil de Maureen. Elle dit qu'il faut passer à l'action. Deuxième conseil, c'est aussi les opportunités. Elle dit que les opportunités sont factuelles, elles existent. Ça peut être sur le plan macro, ça peut être sur le plan micro, et par conséquent, c'est à nous de segmenter ces opportunités ou les problèmes afin de pouvoir résoudre un tout petit dans un coin. La troisième chose, et elle recommande sur ce point de surtout penser grand, mais d'agir tout petit. Donc, c'est pour ça qu'on a dit il faut analyser, faire de l'analyse macro, trouver des solutions micro, mais surtout segmenter afin de penser grand et agir dans un coin, ne pas vouloir tout faire en même temps. Le troisième conseil que Maureen nous donne, c'est la traçabilité. Donc, elle recommande de travailler avec d'autres institutions et surtout de tenir compte de la traçabilité lorsque l'on travaille, lorsque l'on traite des déchets, parce que c'est très important pour que votre business réussisse. Quatrième conseil que Maureen nous donne, c'est l'attitude de croissance. Elle recommande aux entrepreneurs et aux jeunes de toujours penser à la croissance lorsqu'on veut faire du business. C'est très important. On ne s'engage pas dans un business où il n'y a pas de croissance. Dernier conseil et pas des moindres, pour ne pas dire le plus important, elle recommande que dans tout business, que ce soit environnement, que ce soit business écologique, que ce soit business vert ou pas, nous devons avoir un business model. Ça veut dire que, quelle que soit l'activité que nous faisons, nous devons faire des recherches, faire des études afin de découvrir comment est-ce que notre business peut nous rapporter de l'argent. C'est ça le business model. Donc, elle demande pour tout projet d'avoir un modèle économique où on a la proposition de valeur, où on a les segments de clients et on a le revenu stream. Comment est-ce qu'on fait pour gagner de l'argent dans notre business? Donc, voilà les 5 clés partagées par Prima Facie et les 5 clés partagées par Maureen. Je vous remercie. On va passer aux questions-réponses. Over to you, Sandra.
Merci, Foko. I'll start with a question for Maureen, and then I'll have a question for Prima Facie. We are responding mainly to the questions related to today's session. So the first question is one to you, Maureen. How can businesses identify and meet the specific different customer segments? So how can business identify and meet the different customer and meet the specific needs of different customer segments? That's a question for you, Maureen.
Awesome. That's a very valid question, and I would look at it from two perspectives. We are startups. We are really early stage in the business, so we are people with big ideas, very well intentions, with minimum resources, and we're starting where we are. So I would encourage you to segment in two main ways, either by industry. So for example, I am in the waste management sector and I'm focusing on sanitation and specific sanitation in schools. So you can segment by either industry, and then under the industry, you can go ahead and segment within a certain segment. Or you can choose to segment, or for example, you can choose to say, I'm going to go in electronic waste, and then I'm going to start with the area where I live in. So for example, if you live in Kenya, you can decide, maybe I live in Buruburu, and I want to do waste management, which is electronic waste or e-waste. Then you'll go ahead and I'll say, I'll focus on e-waste, and then you'll go very geographical, and then you can go from there. The second broad segmentation could actually potentially be by region. Prima Facie is handling multiple industries. She's integrated technology, and she's in Kisumu. She started off in Kisumu. So that could be the approach, either by region, and then you go specific, and then you say region, and then sector specific. So either regional segment, and then introduce a sector or sector segment. So I'd look at it broadly from that perspective. And this is really because as a startup business or as an early stage business, you don't have the resources to solve all the problems at a big level.
Thank you, Maureen. So what we're hearing is start small, define your segment, your business segment. The next question is around technology, and I'll introduce that to Prima Facie. You talked about AI, you talked about data, you talked about sampling. And so the question is, how can business leverage technology for waste tracking, sorting, and recycling operations? It's a two-part question. The first part is, how can businesses leverage technology for waste tracking, sorting, and recycling? And the second part of the question is, what innovative technologies can be implemented to improve waste management and recycling processes? So looking at technology in the whole circular economy and the waste management sector. Over to you, Prima Facie.
Thank you so much, Shanda. Apologies, my lights just went off, but if I got your question correctly, is on leveraging technology for waste tracking, sorting, and recycling. So that is quite direct. There are technologies that are coming up, especially if you're in the packaging sector. People who are packaging for products such as food or just general packaging, that you're able to put a barcode that is able to be tracked from the production process all the way to where it ends up. And those are mechanisms that are really coming up to help businesses, that is big businesses who are in the packaging industry, to help them track where their waste ends up and also help in waste management. In terms of sorting, there are so many innovations in the sorting, and it depends on where in the waste value chain you're looking at it from. For waste generation, there are mechanisms such as bins that are able to sort waste automatically, so that, let's say, a banana peel and you put it in a bin, the bin automatically sorts, and that it uses AI to automatically sort what type of waste this is, and it puts it in a bin that's specifically for organic waste. And then there are bins that now are, let's say, organic and wet, that's wet and dry waste, or even going down into plastic and all the other types of waste. And you can only insert you can only insert the type of waste that is labeled on the bin. And even going further into, maybe even in the global north countries, if you insert a plastic bottle, or you're able to recycle a plastic bottle via such a bin, you're able to get coins that you can now use for anything that you want. And then on the other flip side, the second part of the question is innovative technologies. And there are a lot of innovative technology depending on how you're looking at the sector. For ourselves, we started with a mobile application focusing on waste generation, so trying to shift the behaviors of communities. But there are innovative technologies all the way from things like BSF is an innovative technology. Things like the way that there are mechanisms in terms of, you go into a lab and you're able to create biodegradable materials instead of using for packaging, instead of people using plastic materials. There are technologies that are helping people with, again, separation of waste as also bins that are able to really help communities and household users do that. There are technologies, I know, like in Kisumu, we have Sunnywise, who are changing, who are converting human waste into fertilizer, and even technologies that go further into converting waste into, let's say, liquid waste back into water that can be reused for agricultural purposes. So it depends on which sector that you're looking at. And as Maureen was talking about earlier, you really need to focus on the micro level. So which sector are you really looking at, and so that you focus on and do your research, so that you focus on one specific thing instead of looking at it from a very high level. So even in the waste management sector, there are very different sectors. And she said she's focusing on sanitation, I'm focusing on solid waste management, and people are focusing on a wide array of sectors in this value chain. So you have to really focus on one thing. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you very much, Prima Facie. And we are dealing with a reality in our context here in Africa. We have power sometimes and we don't have power sometimes, but that doesn't stop us from gleaning more information. So I have a question to both Maureen and Prima Facie. Given that the next stage we're going to in the BeGreen program is one, the green online training, as well as the business plan. And so a lot of young people are wondering, where are they gaps or opportunities in the waste management sector that young people or young entrepreneurs can begin to work around? I repeat the question, where do you see opportunities or gap in the waste management center that young people can work around? Maureen, can we start with you?
Yes. So the opportunity and the gaps could be multifolded. So like we said, it could even just start from within your community. Out of observation, research is usually two-folded: scientific research and then research that you do by observing and then you validate. So if you just look with your naked eye, like for example, the other day I was looking at my daughter's school waste, because when in a new curriculum, there's a lot of things that we print, so there's a lot of paper waste in my house. So then I looked at it and I was like, how many other houses have this kind of waste? And I'm already thinking about not only have I thought, I have written a document and a strategy that I'm already approaching people who recycle or upcycle paper waste into other products and value addition products. So that could be it. Through observation, what waste is bugging you in your space and how can you solve that? And then there's now that's for me to say the different types of waste that we generate, read about how they can be upcycled or recycled or really reconverted. And then I think there's also a very big opportunity in compliance. A lot of organizations or startups or even big organizations do not have the blueprint of compliance. I think Prima Facie mentioned it. Data is not in one spot. I see an opportunity where an innovative young person in Africa can actually take time, especially scholars, and take time to aggregate this information, put up compliance documents, and present it to people who want to penetrate the industry. Because we already know data and information in Africa is scattered. That's right there an opportunity. So there's an opportunity for you to support in first of all, facilitating compliance information and documentation. And I've already seen a question similar to that. What are the legislation? So we constantly ask that question, but there's no solution. I think right there is a gap, especially to people who like reading or people who are scholars, because business is not always about supporting or creating apps or creating the next product or you going to take. There's a very big opportunity in knowledge and information as a business. And then there's also the bit, like I said, collaborations. So which big organizations have global treaties or global declarations, and they've signed waste management treaties. So these could be organizations that as young people, you may go there to try and support them, either to collect for them this plastic or collect for them this waste and take it back to them. So do we have an organization that has a return policy? Which organizations have return policy? Are you able to go to your community and see if, for example, a large manufacturing company has a plastic return policy? Are you able to come together or think about how you model that business so that you can be able to solve their problem of returning the waste? So you aggregate and then you take it back. And it can be any form of waste: electronic waste, your plastic, and other types of waste. I think I have, in my other life, I run a business which is an entrepreneur support organization for women. And one of the things I've been having a lot with people in the cosmetic and fashion industry. Cosmetic and fashion is a big revenue generator for Africa. And we are consuming a lot of fashion. So I'm constantly challenging the entrepreneurs in our space. Fashion waste. What are you doing with the pieces of fabric that's coming out of the clothes we are wearing? What are you doing with the pieces of leather that is coming out of the bags we are carrying? What are you doing with hair? When the salon, after you've done with your hair and you've cut all those pieces, what are you going to do with that? So the opportunities can be as broad as they can be. They can also be as limited as we want to see. And that's why one of my takeaways was think big, have a growth mindset, and sometimes the opportunities are right in front.
Thank you, Maureen. Prima Facie, can you give an answer to opportunities, gaps for young people within the waste management sector?
Yes, thank you, Sandra. And I think what Maureen has said, really, I'll just emphasize on really narrowing down to where are you? What is around you? What is your community doing? How are they handling waste? For us in Kisumu, there's even waste from fish, so the scales, and people are using it to make leather. There is, for a very long time, we usually slaughter cows. Do you ever think about where the hides go? She has talked about the fashion industry. How can you innovate around that? So there are a lot of opportunities for young people in the sector, even in technology. So she talked about consulting services. I'll also touch a bit on that and say that ESG, that is environmental, social, and governance, is something that's coming up quite fast. And you can read about it and see and understand how can I help companies really meet their targets with that. Most companies right now are even reaching out to us for waste audits and waste compliance, because with the new regulations in town, you have to be really compliant, and this knowledge is not out there for everyone. And if you have a keen interest in learning, just learn about it, get certification, and you're able to offer these consulting services. And then understand as well, just along the lines of consulting, understand how you're able to help and advise for businesses in terms of circularity. Circularity is something that's coming up really fast. So are you able to advise businesses on the same? And you yourself, look at the businesses that are around you. As I said, most of the businesses generate a lot of waste and they don't know where to take it. So are you able to help them, or use the thing that they view as waste, or they term as waste, and turn that waste into a valuable resource for yourself to start a business with? So you're starting from from something that you would have otherwise been considered waste and being discarded. And I'm seeing a very huge opportunity in sustainable packaging solution, because again, we're really moving away from the way that we are packaging products in plastic bottles, in plastic containers, in plastic bags, to things that are biodegradable. So do your research and understand what materials can I use in terms of packaging. If you walk into Kidri offices and you have an idea and you have what you need to test it out, they'll be able to help you. So don't be afraid. Again, for Kidri, that's in Kenya, that helps in terms of development and research. So even for the folks who are in other parts of the continent, understand which government institution am I able to get in touch with, just to sort of test the ideas that I have without really needing so much resources. Thank you, Sandra.
Thank you, Prima Facie. The ideas start with you looking around, looking at the challenges and generating opportunities from this. This is the first session that we have. I've seen a lot of questions around the fashion, the textile. Exciting to share that next week we are going to have somebody who's recycling or upcycling fashion and textile into a successful enterprise. So those of you who are tuned in today, please join us next week to learn more about that. I apologize, we have not had a translation, but let me ask Foko, please do a translation before we conclude. And maybe one request I can put to the audience, maybe you can type in and we can also just analyze which other sectors would you like to know more about, hear more about from successful entrepreneurs who can share the experience, like we've had Maureen and Prima Facie today. I've picked out the fashion, the textile. We have that session next week. So it would be great to hear from you young people. What is it that you want to hear about? As you type that in, I will have for our Francophone audience, Foco, please give a summary of what Prima Facie and Maureen have shared in their responses. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Sandra. Donc, nous en sommes aux questions-réponses. Et il y a une question qui a été posée à Maureen et à Prima Facie qui ont successivement répondu. Donc, la question, c'était comment est-ce qu'on en arrive à identifier des idées et faire un lien avec un segment de marché? Alors, qu'est-ce que Maureen nous dit? Maureen nous dit, effectivement, quand il y a une idée qu'on a réussi à identifier, et l'idée, généralement, pas d'un problème qu'on a trouvé au sein de la société, au sein de notre communauté. Elle dit, quand vous avez une idée et lorsqu'il y a un problème, il ne faudrait pas vous embrouiller en termes de solution. Ne cherchez pas à tout résoudre en même temps. Ce qu'il faut faire est simple. Et elle prend l'exemple qu'elle, par exemple, Elle a d'abord identifié qu'il y avait un problème de déchets de façon généraliste dans la ville de Nairobi et son intervention, sa solution est une solution industrielle. C'est du domaine industriel, mais dans l'industrie, elle a choisi déjà le sous-segment vert. Donc, elle a dit, je vais faire une industrie verte. Et dans l'industrie verte, elle est partie choisir les toilettes. Donc, elle s'est spécialisée à résoudre les problèmes de toilettes. Mais elle avait d'autres choix. Lorsqu'on veut faire dans l'industrie et dans le segment vert, on pouvait aussi faire dans le traitement des déchets électroniques. Et du coup, il y a d'autres personnes qui font dans le traitement des déchets électroniques. Une autre façon aussi d'agir lorsqu'on a une idée, c'est de choisir un segment régional. Elle a par exemple le cas de Prima Facie qui intervient dans plusieurs villes. Donc, vous avez le choix, lorsqu'il y a un problème, d'apporter une solution par rapport à une cible bien précise. Ne pas vouloir résoudre tous les problèmes en même temps. Choisissez votre cible. OK. L'autre chose, c'est comment tirer parti de la technologie. C'est la question qui a été posée à... Excusez-moi. OK. C'est peut-être le deuxième volet de la question, comment tirer parti de la technologie et de l'amélioration. Donc, elle nous a dit que dans le secteur vert, non, ça c'est Prima Facie qui a dit en fait que bon, OK, lorsqu'elle identifie une idée, il est important de procéder à un choix de technologie. Et le choix de technologie peut faire que on soit en train d'adopter une technologie liée au problème qu'on va trouver. Par exemple, elle dit qu'elle utilise des systèmes de tri automatiques, mais il existe aussi des systèmes de tri non automatiques. Et que dans sa façon de résoudre le problème, elle a beaucoup intégré le changement de croyance, c'est-à-dire l'éducation. Ça, c'est Prima Facie qui le dit. Et que parmi les solutions qu'elle apporte, il y a par exemple le traitement des déchets pour en faire des engrais, donc des fertilisants. Ça, c'est les déchets ménagers. Et que son activité peut aussi intégrer le traitement des eaux. C'est-à-dire, généralement, dans les usines ou dans les ménages, il y a les eaux qui sont rejetées dans la nature. Vous pouvez décider aussi de choisir ce segment de traitement des eaux usées. Donc, ça, c'est ce que nous a dit Prima Facie. Concernant la deuxième question qui a été posée à nos deux panélistes, il y a par exemple, on a dit comment faire pour identifier et saisir les opportunités. C'est-à-dire, qu'est-ce qu'il faut faire à un moment X ou Y pour pouvoir saisir les opportunités. Donc, Maureen nous dit que c'est simple, il faut faire beaucoup de recherches dans sa communauté. Surtout identifier les problèmes qu'on peut avoir, comme par exemple l'augmentation de la chaleur dans les villes. Et elle a dit, dans ses recherches, elle a eu à lire des livres où on parlait de ceux qui traitent le papier. Donc, comment est-ce que les gens traitent le papier après utilisation? Ça, ce sont des lectures qu'elle a eu à faire. Et généralement, dans le domaine, on parle de l'upcyclage et du recyclage. Donc, c'est deux expressions différentes. Et la semaine prochaine, ou bien la prochaine session, il y a un invité qui nous parlera de ces deux technologies. Donc, Maureen a aussi parlé des données. Elle a dit, elle, pour pouvoir identifier les opportunités, il faut beaucoup avoir des informations et traiter ces informations-là. Tenir compte aussi de la collaboration entre les différents acteurs qu'il y a dans le domaine. Et pour conclure, elle parle de penser grand et avoir un esprit de croissance. Donc voilà deux valeurs qu'elle met au devant. Vous devez toujours penser grand et toujours avoir l'esprit de croissance. Pour Prima Facie, elle dit que pour pouvoir saisir les opportunités, il faut juste regarder, par exemple, dans le secteur de la mode, qu'est-ce qu'on fait des déchets des habits? Qu'est-ce qu'on fait des déchets de la couture, du domaine de la couture? Il faut voir comment traiter cela. Et pour cela, il y a des technologies qui sont mises en place en termes de secteur de l'environnement, en termes de business vert. Elle a aussi parlé d'autres opportunités comme par exemple les consultations. Vous pouvez vous spécialiser comme consultant dans le domaine de l'environnement. Ça, c'est quelque chose qui marche bien. Elle dit aussi qu'on peut avoir les opportunités dans les nouvelles lois. Quand le gouvernement fait des nouvelles lois, vous pouvez aller dans ces lois-là et voir ce qui peut être une opportunité pour vous en termes de création de business. Elle parle aussi des entreprises industrielles. Généralement, les entreprises industrielles produisent beaucoup de déchets. Vous pouvez vous rapprocher de ces entreprises et leur proposer de retraiter leurs déchets. Et pour finir, Elle est aussi revenue sur les emballages. Vous savez, aujourd'hui, les emballages posent un problème à cause de leur déversement dans la nature, que ce soit les plastiques ou les bouteilles. Vous pouvez mettre en place une idée qui est de résoudre le problème que posent les emballages plastiques ou les emballages en bouteille dans la nature, tout simplement en proposant un traitement sur la base des technologies existantes ou bien des technologies que vous pouvez vous-même créer. Donc, voilà pour ce qu'on avait à dire aujourd'hui. Il y aura d'autres sessions, donc nous allons passer à la conclusion. Over to you, Sandra.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Foco. I'm looking at the time. We were to end at 7:30 and we want to respect everybody's time. I know there's several questions in the chat regarding what next, where are we in the timeline, and this will be communicated to you officially via email for those who are enrolled in the program. So look out, check your emails. We'll update emails and also post the information to those who are registered on the platform. Tune in again next Thursday where we have somebody speaking about circular upcycling within the fashion textile industry as well as the waste sector. So we say thank you for all of you for joining, for your great question, your responses. We'll analyze the chat and also share an FAQ on a lot of the questions that you've asked. Don't hesitate to reach out to both Maureen and Prima Facie on their LinkedIn, the different social media accounts. These are young people who have started businesses, who are solving challenges within the community. And I'm sure that each and every one of you can do the same. So I'll say thank you from my end and maybe give Prima Facie and Maureen and Foco the opportunity to also say thank you and goodbye to the audience. Over to you, Maureen.
Thanks so much, Sandra, and the entire BeGreen team. Thank you so much, Rolin, Foco, for giving the translations. I think for me, it's a word of encouragement and to just let you know that one of the mantras that I believe in is done is better than perfect. So please start where you are. There's never a perfect opportunity for you to start. Start confidently, go for it. And we are in the knowledge and information space. Go on the internet, reach out to different mentors on LinkedIn, use the internet wisely, and you're going to get a lot of insights. And most important, if you go through the BeGreen program, it's an amazing curriculum. It's been well thought through. Look at it from a business perspective as well. So there's the waste management bit, and then there's the business bit. So this is where you're going to understand how to better have a business model start with, and of course, transitioning.
Prima Facie, over to you for your parting shot to the young people of our audience.
Thank you so much, Sandra, and to the BeGreen team, UNICEF, staff, and ICARE Foundation. Thank you so much for this opportunity to share what we do here in Kisumu, Kenya, to the whole continent. And my parting shot will be for innovators, for entrepreneurs. Just start small, start with the challenges and the opportunities that you're seeing around you. Don't be afraid to reach out for help. And as Maureen was saying, collaborate. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. There are people who are already doing something. See if you can partner with them to push forward your agenda and go through the BeGreen program. As Maureen said again, it's a very comprehensive curriculum that will help you not only think about waste management, but businesses and create circular business cases within the waste management sector. Thank you so much, Sandra.
Merci. Chimeze, you want to say thank you as we log off?
Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Sandra. Thank you, Maureen. Foco, thank you again. Your translations, you are highly appreciated. Prima Facie, thank you. Just to mention that in the YouTube, you can see the link. In the description box, you can see a SurveyMonkey link for some sort of attendance, right? So just your name, your email. If you have any other questions you want to ask, because we are out of time, we will share this to our facilitators So there is also where you can ask any question you want there, and then we'll share it to our facilitators. And when they provide their responses, it will be part of the curated FAQ we will send to you. But so far, we have touched on every question we've seen on the chat box. So if there are any additional ones you want to ask, please click on the link in the description box and just fill the form. Yeah. Thank you again. Thank you, Sandra, Maureen, Roland, Foko, and Prima Facie. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you and bye-bye.
Au revoir tout le monde. À jeudi prochain.